Welcome to Weaving New Paths, Conversations with Visionaries. I'm your host, Grandmother Sharon Raji Maynard. Each week, we sit with individuals who followed a calling, who turned idea into healing, creativity, and change. Their stories remind us that every dream matters. You matter. And that new pathways are being woven every day. Thank you for joining us. Let's step into today's conversation. Welcome listeners to this broadcast called Weaving New Paths, Conversations with Visionaries. I'm your host, Sharon Raji Maynard, and I invite you into this circle where stories become medicine and visions become pathways. So if you're feeling your own dream awakening, if you're ready to hear from those who dared to believe their calling mattered, you're in the right place. And in sharing her wisdom, my guest today, Alice Leibowitz, will leave you knowing that your inner call is important in our world. Welcome, Alice. So glad to be with you in conversation.
Thank you, Sharon. So glad to have been invited.
You know, over the years, you've been calling out to help people wake up. The one idea that jumped out at me as I was reading your bio for myself is this statement, finding solid ground in a spiraling world. And I went, oh my gosh, there we are. It's not all that you do, but I'd love for you just to begin by sharing maybe what brought you to this world of teaching, of activism, of trying to wake people up. What was that spark?
Wow. So teaching and activism have been alive in me for a very long time. I mean, teaching, my parents were professors and I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be a teacher. I do remember a time when I wanted to be a ballet dancer. Which may be a little earlier, but I've always seen myself as a teacher. And maybe it's because some things have been very easy for me to learn and some things have been hard. And so it's always worth explaining things in a way that's really clear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a passion, lifelong passion, many identities ago. And activism, I got into activism in college. And initially it was more of a social thing. I was looking for student activities that didn't involve heavy drinking. And there weren't many.
Challenge.
There weren't many, and the interesting ones had to do with politicized issues. I don't know if that had to do with politics, but LGBT issues in the 80s and trying to end the nuclear arms race. And I found a home in these communities. And it's really interesting. People will say to me, "Oh, I'm not an activist. I don't do enough." And I never encountered that, even when we were just putting on dances and coffee and open mic nights.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like activism to me. And I have a big thing about effectiveness, which maybe we'll get into, but I didn't require high stakes impact to claim the word activist. And then specifically what has called me to wanting to both wake people up and support people as crises of fascism, genocide, authoritarianism, as they are rising and accelerating in the Western world. So what called me to speak about those things and to offer support to find our solid ground It was me. I was my first client. Um,
Good
and I
stuff.
was, yeah, and I was not a very, at first, I was not a very good teacher or coach to myself. Um, this is not about Donald Trump and he's a character in the story, right? So I viewed him as a fascist from, the very first primary he was in, early speeches, you know, set off archetypal alarms for me. And when he actually was elected, um, it really brought up in me a sort of a lifelong promise as a Jewish person and as a progressive to prevent the rise of fascism from its smallest seed, right? That
Mm-hmm.
um, when I was in high school, Holocaust survivor Eli Wiesel came to my high school and talked to us about his experiences and said, never again means
Yeah.
this could happen anywhere. You have to be ready. Um, and then I saw a Tony Kushner play, A Bright Room Called Day, about people who saw what was coming with Hitler in the 20s, right? And their paralysis and wondering what to do, right? And so, this was always in the back of my mind. Okay, early warning signs, it's time to take action. And then I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not that I shied away from activism, right? I'd been in the Occupy Wall Street movement, I'd been in this movement, that movement. But for me, it was too big, too urgent, too important, too critical. Um, I didn't want to do anything that wasn't going to be the thing. I didn't want it. I had what I now call urgency paralysis, where I was caught between pressure to do something and pressure to do the right thing. And when you haven't figured out what your right thing is, or if you're putting either you're being too picky or you just haven't found it yet, um, two urges that could support each other actually block each other. And I honestly stayed in that state for almost 4 years. Yeah. And I finally had a breakthrough in a weekend workshop with nonviolent communication trainer Mickey Cashtan called Responding to the Call of Our Times, which she now offers online in a different format. Um, where she really said, start where you are. What is your actual leverage? Stop focusing on where you don't have leverage and how you're going to get it. If you're in this room, you already have various kinds of privilege. And what are they? And who do you have influence over? And what skills you have, etc. And I, that's when I started some of the precursors to conversations against fascism, but that's when I knew I was going to start with people I know and that I was going to offer some of the teaching, facilitation, coaching, personal growth, emotional self-connection. Although I think at that time, I was thinking more like facilitation and visioning, which I do some of now, but not as much. I knew I was going to bring what I'm really excellent at and start with people who were already ready to listen to me, but just weren't were ready to listen to me, knew they wanted to do something, but weren't quite plugged in
Mm-hmm.
to help them take that last step into effective action.
It reminds me of a quote, a couple of things actually. Because I think in our developed world, I can only speak for developed world as far as what I'm experiencing in women. We have had such a huge concept that we are not enough. That we got, like you said, you got to find the right thing, the right thing. And I want to work. What's the right thing? Because we have to do it right. We have to do it enough, etc. And it's totally false programming. It's not that at all because everyone can do something. That was perfect. You are here. There's something you can do. And what's the right step? This is the one that was important for me. Is what's the right step to do? Any step. Any gap.
Yeah,
Ah,
and I I do believe that, and I also, I mean, I have this, so I have this background in, like, I've been an activist since 1987, right?
mm-hmm,
I joined a lot of movements when they were already dying, but I didn't know it,
mm-hmm.
right? I joined the peace movement that was an echo of the anti-war movement of, I mean, the anti-Vietnam movement, right?
Yes, yes.
15 years later. And I mean, as far as I know, there hasn't been an effective peace movement in the US, since the early 70s. Um, but there really wasn't any energy in the peace movement at that time. Some energy flared up around the Gulf War, but um, something, I had the sense, we can't make a difference here. And then I was in the queer movement, which was not yet dead, but it was riding on the coattails of the Black Civil Rights Movement of the 50s and 60s, which I'm not going to call it dead, but its original tactics and frames were had worn out. And
Mm-hmm.
that movement got reborn in 2020 or 2012 through 2020 as the Black Lives Matter movement, different frame, different tactics, um, riding on the shoulders of what had been done in the 50s. But in the in-between time, those of us who were like, oh yeah, this is another equal rights movement,
Mm-hmm.
we were we were relying on some tactics and frames that were not fresh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after 20 years of, first of all, these tactics and frames getting less and less fresh, and me just seeing the same thing happen, like, oh, well, let's have an event. Oh, nobody came. Oh, let's have a meeting. Oh, it's the same three people it was last week. Oh, look, eight new people. Oh, they didn't never came back. I actually quit activism in 2005.
Okay.
Um, because I was like, I want my energy, the energy that I put into things. I want to put my energy into things that bring me energy back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my retirement only lasted 6 years. The Occupy movement, like, uh, called to me with a beautiful, fresh voice, and you do. So I would say, is any action better than no action? Yes, but sometimes only marginally. But if you see the direction you want to go, you don't actually have to jump all the way across 300 miles in one step.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
So it's like, if you want, so I'm really big on, like, what's the direction? What are you called to do, both inside you and by forces of the universe and by forces of history, and then take an action in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the next action you take? Well, you've got some choices, which one's going to take you a little closer to that direction, right? It's the sort of navigating by stars sort of mentality, right? Like, you're never going to reach a star
Yeah.
or get anywhere close to a star, but knowing what the star is lets you go in a direction. I know you want to respond, but there's another thing I want to respond
No,
from.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Americans, especially, and I think, like, white Westerners in general, think that effectiveness has to be individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I knew who wrote about this, but I believe it was an Arab woman wrote, you know, act activists of color don't give up hope nearly as quickly, because we don't get hope from results. We don't expect necessarily results. We don't feel entitled to results. We get hope from each other.
Love it. Love it.
And
Mm-hmm.
hope comes from each other. Effectiveness comes from each other. Nobody, I mean, somebody might end up being a hero at a pivotal moment and turn a tide but almost anything big that happens with lots of people rowing in approximately the same direction. It doesn't even have to be exactly the same direction. Um, and I think that's part of the antidote to the superwoman complex.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely. I totally agree. It's like we're not in a sprint and that one sprinter is going to win. We're relay team and we have our eye on a goal, whatever that is. And whatever steps you individually feel to take. And when you're in a community that cheers you on, we don't have to even take the same steps because what you're drawn to do might be to teach classes and somebody else is out there making signs or somebody else is making sure everybody has food and it's that working together that is so important in life period but definitely in activism.
Yeah, and even in the most interdependent movements I've been in, like even in a single Occupy encampment, you have literally all the roles you just named.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we are, we were working to, we were working together, living together, spending our days together, at least, for a few days, and then the intensity wore off a little. But there were people making art. There were people calling the city. There were people holding signs in traffic. There were people giving out water bottles to the marathon runners. There were people,
Yeah,
right? I was facilitating a lot of meetings. My girlfriend was, you know, doing mental health de-escalation and reminding people to put on sunscreen. All
yes,
all things are needed.
yes,
Or yeah. Yeah, there's so many different ways that people can make a difference and it's much so superwoman is an interesting choice of words because it actually combines a male impossible expectation with a female impossible expectation, right?
yes,
There's the male idea that you need to be a superhero, right? Because there
right,
actually is no superwoman in Marvel, right? There's Superman.
yes,
So you need to be the hero who saves the day. And then you also have to be the everything for everyone.
for everyone, right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
And you actually don't need to be either. And also you can't be either.
yeah, yeah.
No one can be either. Yeah.
So, so current day, I mean, you've gone through a lot of movements focusing always though on holding each other value, holding
Yeah.
in some form or another. And in those early days, I remember it was the college campuses where things started. I mean, the college campuses really, really provided the energy and the movement and the commitment, that others got juiced by, if you will. I don't know if our campuses are still doing that as much, but definitely
Well,
do.
2 years, I mean, 2 years ago, the student encampments for Gaza
Mm,
got a lot of, got a whole lot of attention
attention. That's true. That's true.
where people had been, closing down bridges and closing down Grand Central Station and singing here and
Hmm.
confronting politicians on camera saying, will you ever stop taking money from AIPAC? I mean,
That's
I
true.
thought there was so much going on. And then somebody's like, did you know that there are student encampments? Did you know there? And it was as if nothing else had happened because nothing else had gotten any coverage.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and the backlash was swift and severe.
Right, right. And when you're in this world of seeing patterns, because you saw patterns early on with a commitment to when you saw a pattern, say no. I mean, you'd put that together where many were not even like even looking at patterns because they hadn't thought about it yet. You
Or
know what I mean?
they had a different pattern. I mean,
Mm,
the main pattern, the main frame of analysis
mm-hmm,
that Americans have when we look at anything political is the partisan pattern.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so the partisan framework. So people were like, oh, look, it's another Republican.
Yeah,
Um, maybe it's, oh, the Democrats will save us, or maybe it's, we've been through, we've had Republicans before. We always thought that they were going to round everybody up in concentration camps. What's so different about this? Um, so yes, so that frame, and then the media had this additional frame of celebrity and like Donald Trump again. It's not all about Trump, but like what he was one of those people who are famous for being famous, like Paris Hilton we used to talk about. Like, what is she famous for? Oh, for being
Yeah.
famous, right? So there was a lot of, oh, he's funny, oh, he's a clown, oh, he's exaggerated. I mean, NPR was playing his speeches in their entirety, right? Like I could I had heard like five, maybe 20 hours of Donald Trump speaking before I found out that Bernie Sanders had a New York Jewish accent, right? Like the coverage was, and from listening to NPR with my roommate. Um, so yeah, so there was celebrity and partisanship and then also American exceptionalism can't happen here. There were frames of analysis that people were already in that that I but first of all, I was not super convinced by. Like I was already like done with partisanship. Um, Never really got into cult of celebrity. The American exceptionalism thing, it still gets to me. I still am like, no, no, we'll be fine. Like several hours a day. I think that when
Yeah.
I know it's not true or potentially not true. Um, so those weren't blinding me, but also I had learned things about fascism that most people hadn't learned just because I happened to show up at this one workshop one time and read this book one time and saw this play because I liked the author, right? Like took a quiz at the farmers market, right? Um, so yes, I connect dots. That's like how my brain works. You can probably see it just in any conversation with me. And I had a framework available that most people didn't have available. I and I was not blinded by the frameworks that most of them were trying to push everything into.
Yeah. The old Chinese saying, and I use this in a lot of my work. The old Chinese saying that says, "When sleeping women wake, mountains will move."
Mm,
And I think we have, as women, especially for me, I'll say this as a white woman, I think we as white women have been put to sleep in those other stories,
yes.
in those other paradigms. And so we're being faced now in the country and in the world with stories we they're out there somewhere. But all of a sudden now we're faced with these stories, which are, we'll say, patterns, because the stories keep repeating, that are either going to wake us up or I guess could crush us into powerlessness. And so that's why, your statement of what do we do in these shaking times, I think it's examine our paradigms, and where what you had thought was truth may not be serving us well. Where is there more I can learn for a different outcome? That outcome is what that's where we focus. Wherever we want to either expand what we are currently doing, we can keep the same outcome if we like it. And we can also say, well, wait a minute, do I want that for myself or my children and grandchildren? And no, then you have to find a different paradigm, a different story, a different outcome. And it requires a humility, maybe, that says, gosh, I thought I was right. Maybe I'm not. You know what I mean? So
I yeah.
yeah.
So and I do want to say awareness is so only the first step. And there's part of
Oh,
me
yeah.
that's incredibly impatient because I had the awareness now 11 years ago, right? Um, and people are hitting the awareness very, very fast. And is there time to get to the next step and the next step and the next step in time to
Hmm.
get to the step that's called, we actually put a stop to this?
Hmm. Well, tell the listeners, what is that you're doing? I mean, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
So
know,
I don't do that last step, right? I mean, I do, but not inside
yeah,
the business, right? What I do is I help people. Yeah, first step is honestly, it's not even awareness. If you don't have the awareness, you're not on my mailing list. But
hmm,
the
yeah,
first
yeah,
step is emotional integration, like deal with your grief, deal with your fear, deal with your rage,
Mm.
whatever it is, together
Hmm.
so that you can find that hope, that clarity, hope, and resolve that comes from community, even though these are often very temporary communities that aren't taking
Hmm.
action together, just knowing that there are other people who care and allowing yourself to be vulnerable is
Yeah.
a huge, huge step. And then second step is um, figure out what that aligned role of yours is. What are you really great at? What do you really care about? What is going to be effective in this moment? And
Yeah.
line all of those up because there is magic in alignment, right?
Hmm.
Friction goes away when you, the universe, and you, the spiritual universe, and the physical universe are all lined up.
Hmm.
Right? There's magnetism. There's gravitational pull, whatever. I don't know. Some physics metaphor. Things move fast.
They do. And even
another
so.
another thing I do is I help people plan conversations across difference. Like
Oh.
how can you actually deal with what people are saying
Hmm.
without demonizing them, but also without pretending that what they're saying is right or fine or whatever. But like, how do you hear them? How do you communicate with them? A- Um, Another critical step is preparing yourself to not get burnt out. So by uh and I basically give people tools for this. It's like there's a tool for de-escalating in a particular situation that feels out of control, but yeah. Um, but there isn't necessarily a gun in your face, although it might work with a gun in your face, who knows? If you remember.
Yeah.
And and then prioritizing on a daily basis or a project by project basis, right? We already got what's your North Star, but then like, okay, as you're getting to the North Star, are you cutting away this bramble bush, or are you shoveling this snow, or are you having a party? You be at choice so that you don't get exhausted.
Hmm.
Um, so that's that step. And then I don't know if this is the last step. It's kind of another thing is that I help people with is crisis planning. What are you going to do as things get worse? Do you stay? Do you go? Do you fight? Do you not fight? Do you hide? Do you not hide? And and how do you want to help others who may be in more need than you?
Yes. Yes. And so, how can our listeners? I mean, you have a
Yeah.
website, right? Where? Because
So right now, I'm I'm close to having a website. There might be a one by the time this gets published.
okay.
And right now I have a link tree. So
Oh
it's
yes.
linktree.conversations against fascism. So it's linktr.ee/ conversations against fascism. So that has my Instagram, my YouTube, my Facebook group, my Substack. Substack is and my email list. So that's like how people can learn about me, stay involved, be someone who hears about events as we go along. And then I'm having what's called a grounded resistance training camp. It's going to be five 3-hour sessions in April, and I'll get you the dates. Actually, maybe I have the dates. Let me just check. Um, and that's where we do all the skills that I just talked about, the dialogue across difference, the finding solid ground in a spiraling world. Nope, I don't think I put it in my I don't know if I put it in my calendar yet. I'm gonna get you the dates, but it's once a week. It'll be once a week for 3 hours, 5 weeks in a row in April to May.
Perfect. Perfect timing for people.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And yeah. And then my sort of more in-depth program is called the Impactful Leadership Incubator, and that's for people
Mhm.
who are called into a particular purpose for the world and really want to grow into the version of them who can express and hold that.
Right. Oh, I like that. So, what would be one thing maybe you would say to our any of our listeners who are a little shaky or maybe very shaky? who don't know what to do and maybe even scared, what would you say to them? Because we are in
yeah.
times.
Well, I would say your fear is not foolish.
Mm-hmm.
And give yourself a moment for grief of what you anticipatory grief of what you might be losing. And then choose an action you're going to take tomorrow or today. Just even if it's call a friend, even if it's like write a letter to the editor, even if it's like do a little research on when is a rally, even if it's donate money, just find an action because action helps the world and helps you.
Yes. Wow. Well, Alice, thank you for walking with us today on Weaving New Paths. Listeners, may the insights that Alice has shared with us today echo in your heart, awaken what is ready to rise in your own life, start the spark of hope and possibilities. So you'll have the links that you can explore her work even more deeply. If what she has offered today is a gift to spark you, but she has so much more to offer. So if today's conversation stirred something through within you, share it and come back for our next episode. We are so much more powerful when we're together and sharing each other's abilities, joys, and even our own sorrows strengthens community, and community changes the world. Thank you, Alice, for being here. It's been a delight.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
It's almost like, oh my gosh, can I fit more on my calendar? Yes.
Well, we could talk about that.
Another
You might take some things
conversation.
off.
There you go. Weeding and then seeding new, right?
Yeah.
Weeding and seeding. Thank you so much.
You're
Blessings
welcome.
to you.
Thank you, you too.
And to our valued listeners, thank you for being with us here in the sacred space of sovereignty, inquiry, and inspiration. As you explore our guests' work, may you also feel the quiet stirring of your own gift, asking to come alive. The world is shifting, and your unique thread of weaving is essential in that great tapestry. If this conversation nourished you, inspired you, pass it along to others who are seeking hope, direction, and also dreaming a new world into being. We invite you back for the next episode of Weaving New Paths, where together we will continue opening the doors to new ways of seeing, being, and collaborating. Until then, blessings.